Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachah Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Bara'ashiath chapter 2, which pretty much means Genesis chapter 2. We already dealt with chapter 1, so I'll just go to chapter 2. And there's videos up on YouTube still, with the breakdowns of Genesis. The first chapter I was trying to find, I couldn't find it, but everything else, is, so far that I've seen is up there, but Spirit is on me to go through the second chapter, so we're going to go through that. And, these, the first 6 books or so of Genesis are stumbling blocks to these people in the churches, because they don't understand, what's going on, because it wasn't given to them to understand. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Genesis 2 and 1, and we're going to start off there. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them." So pretty much what the Lord is giving Moses here is a recap as to what happened in the first chapter. "And on the 7th day the Most High ended his work which he had made," or the powers ended the work which he had made, "and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made." And this is what he instituted the Sabbath behind. But keep in mind, this was 7,000 years. "And the powers blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested for all his work, from all his work which the powers created and made." And that's why we have the 7th day as a rest Sabbath, and that the number 7 is completion. You have weeks, that are counted for 7 days. 7 days make a week. And that's, when we rest, work 6 days work is done, and the 7th is a Sabbath of rest. Then it goes on to say, "These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord power made the earth and the heavens." Now, when you look up this word generations, the word generation simply, it could either mean genealogy or it could mean record. Because years ago, I'm not sure exactly, the whole breakdown of how it was so long since I've heard of this. I can't really remember full detail. But the so-called Muslims, especially Jake, used to teach that this was talking about the genealogy. I'm not sure if they was talking about the genealogy of the angels or whatever the case may be. I believe that's what it was. But this is not talking about no genealogy. This is talking about records. Now, when we look up the word generations, the word generations is the word Thawala Dawath. Descendants, results, proceedings, generations, genealogies. So it could be descendants, but in this case it's not speaking about descendants. It says course of history of creation, etc., begetting or account of heaven, metaphorically. So this is exactly what it's speaking about, and we know that by the context of what's written. We just read about how the heavens and the earth were finished and created, and how everything was in order, that the Lord rested on the 7th day. So then he's pretty much, when Moses is writing this, pretty much what he's saying is, these are the records. These are the generations of the records of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord, all caps, Yahweh's powers, made the earth and the heavens. So this is the very first time in the scriptures where the Most High's name appears. Is in Genesis, the 2nd chapter and the 4th verse. Okay, so this is a record of everything that took place. It says, "And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord power had not caused it to rain upon the earth." And this is why, Salaki, this is why the people during the time of Noah looked at Noah crazy because he was talking about a flood, coming down, and it never had rain. So people looked at him like he was crazy. And there was not a man to till the ground. Why? Because man didn't have to work back then. Because everything grew of itself. The Most High, had Yahushua and the angels plant the seeds. The seeds grew. They watered it through something called a mist or a dew. And that's how the earth was watered back then. It didn't rain like it does now. Like today, it's been raining pretty much all day. It didn't rain like that back then. The first time it really started raining was during the time of the flood. So this is why the people back then were looking at Noah like he was nuts. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And that's why when you wake up in the morning, you'll see part of the ground is wet. The grass is wet, should I say. You see that mist all over the place. That's how the Lord watered the earth back in the day. He still does it to this day. But that's how everything was kept, with the proper moisture in it, and everything grew of itself because everything was in order. This is prior to the fall of man. Excuse me. And the Lord's power formed man of the dust of the ground, because Adam was taken of the dust of the ground. He was created of the dust of the ground. Adam is an actual dark brown skinned man. I know a lot of Edomites hate to hear that, but this is the truth. But also Adam was in a confused state, because when the Lord created man, beast, and everything, everybody was on the same level until the Lord breathed into the man the breath breath into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. So Adam became a living soul at this point. And this is what gave the distinction between man and beast. All right, it says, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And that's why when Yahushua breathed upon the disciples, they received the Holy Spirit, or they received the understanding. The Holy Spirit really didn't fully come upon them until a day of so-called Pentecost, which is the Feast of First Fruits. But he caused the understanding to come upon them, because prior to that, remember, he would be upset with them. He's like, are you yet without understanding? Because the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of understanding wasn't given to them as of yet, because Yahushua was still alive on the earth. It wasn't until Yahushua died and made that great sacrifice that the seals were opened. You see? So it says, and the Lord power planted a garden eastward in Eden. Now we have to examine this, because people talk about the Garden of Eden. But it says that he planted a garden eastward in Eden. Now, what is Eden? Eden comes from the Hebrew word Idan, which means joy of paradise. This is the name of the earth. The whole earth is Eden. And it's a joy. And even to this day, there's certain places around the earth that you see are still in that paradise, even though they're tainted, but you still see that the beauty and the extravagance of, how it must have been back then. So the Lord, what he did was he took a garden and planted it eastward in Eden. What the so-called scholars call it is the Fertile Crescent. And when you look at a map of the so-called Fertile Crescent, as they call it, because earlier I had typed in, these different rivers just to, get a map to give an illustration of it. And what came up, this is one of the maps that it came up. Let me see, this is gonna probably be too small. Just bear with me 1 second till I find a decent one. All right, let's see what this is now. Just bear with me. I should have just pulled one up already. Nope, that ain't gonna work. Let me try this one. I guess this should be good enough. Yep. All right, cool. Now, what you have here is a picture of the Middle East. You have the Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Persian Gulf, Red Sea, And what you have here in green is something that the so-called scholars call the Fertile Crescent. And you notice it comes all the way down in this area, and it comes all the way up. All right. And this is what we're reading about. This is that garden eastward in Eden. And that's why they call this place what? The Middle East. Because this is the center of the earth. All right. And in between these two, in this area here, between the Euphrates, the Tigris River, all this area here, this is where Noah's 3 sons started to repopulate the earth. All right. And from there, they spread out upon the face of the whole earth. All right. Now, going back, and there he put the man whom he had formed. So the Lord put the man in this region here, you know, because the land of Israel is down here. This is Jerusalem. So all of this right here, this is, and when you read about the blessing or the promise that the Lord made with Abraham, he promised him every land from this area here in Egypt all the way up to here, all of this. What they call it so-called Fertile Crescent, that's what the Lord gave us. Because when you go back to Deuteronomy 32, it says that the Lord pretty much in so many words gave the best portion of land to Israel, because all nations got their inheritance before we did. Because we were pretty much one of the last nations really to be fully formed. And the Lord gave us the best lands. He gave all the nations their lands first. He gave us the best lands. All right. So going back, it says, and out of the ground made the Lord power to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, because this is what we ate back in the days. The tree also of life, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden. Now, what is the tree of life? The tree of life is a tree of well, can't put no better words to it than what it has. The tree of life. It's the tree of life. It's a tree of life. What's the tree of life? The tree of life is the tree of life. Well, the tree of life is the basic instructions of life. When you read throughout the laws, you know, of the Lord, you know, he says you keep these, you know, give you long life, you know, so on and so forth, because these are the instructions on how to please our power. So that's why it's called the tree of life. And this is what we're getting back to right now, because we fell away from that at one time. So now the Lord has given us the ability to get back to the understanding of that tree of life. And that's how we're able to do what we do, you know, through the Spirit and teaching. It says, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, when you look up into the heavens, there is what they call constellations. You have the so-called zodiac sign, you know, and all those different star arrangements up in the heavens. Now, they can be used for good. They could also be used for evil. And the Spirit allows, you know, maybe in another lesson, maybe I'll do a lesson on it if the Spirit allows. I mean, because it's good to know, but it's not like, it's important to know, but it's not detrimental for salvation. So if the Spirit hits me, if the Lord wants me to do a lesson on it and kind of touch on it, I will. You know, we'll see how the Spirit goes. So that's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, to identify the tree of knowledge of good and evil on the planet is there's good things that we could do to please the Lord, and then there's bad things to get on his bad side. And the Lord gives us everything that we should do to please him, and everything that we should do not to do, so that we don't get on his bad side. And you see it in philosophies and religions and sciences and different things of this world, the different teachings. That's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It says, and now, you know, that's a whole separate lesson. If Elder Yashawamba wants to jump on it, I know he loves, you know, doing them type of lessons. You know, if he happens to see this lesson, if he, you know, wants to jump on it, hey, so be it. You know, I give you an alley-oop like Elder Pastor gives to me from time to time. I says, all right. So now here's another key point. It says, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden. So there was a particular river coming out of this garden, you know, that was watering the whole garden. Keep in mind, Eden is Aidan, you know, which is paradise or joy of paradise. And there's a garden that was planted eastward in Eden, and this river was the one that was watering this garden. So what is this river? That's what we have to find out. You know, which those that have been studying know that this river is speaking about the Jordan River. You know, now it says, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. Now it didn't say 4 rivers, it didn't say 4 seas, it didn't say 4 oceans, it didn't say 4 streams, it just said 4 heads. So this river was broken up into 4 separate bodies of water that all stem from that one. All right. Now, what I want to do is, before we actually go into that, right, let's go into, let's see, we already dealt with that. Let me move this over. Now we have here a map of the Mediterranean, you know, and of these the what they call the Middle East. All right. Now, before we get to that, right, there was something that I had wanted to go through. Let's see. All right, let's go to the Apocrypha. Before we go there, let's go to the Apocrypha. That was Ecclesiasticus. I believe it was it 24? Just bear with me. I didn't write this down. Here we go. Ecclesiasticus 24 and 25. He filleth all things with his wisdom, as Pison, and as Tigris in the time of the new fruits. He maketh understanding to abound like Euphrates, and as what? Jordan in the time of the harvest. He maketh the doctrine of knowledge appear as the light, and as Gihon in the time of vintage. So here is giving you a list of these bodies of water, and one of them is the Jordan. So here it said that this particular body of water, that one body of water became 4 heads. So that would be what? That would mean that there would be 5 bodies of water, which shows you that the River Jordan is that main body of water. And when you read Psalms, the 46th chapter tells you that there's a river that waters the land of the Lord, or something along those lines. So it says the name of the first is Pison, right? That is it, the name of the first head of or body of water. That is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, and there is gold. Now we have to identify, because the Pison River is the Red Sea, what they call the Red Sea or the Reed Sea. Now we have to identify where the land of Havilah is, because this is one of the key points in the identification of this body of water. So let's go to Genesis, the 25th chapter, and the 18th verse. It says, and they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur. Now Shur, for those of you that understand or that have been studying, you know that this is dealing with Assyria. They dwelt from Havilah unto Shur. It says, that is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. So when we look at a map, right? And let's read that again. It says, that is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. So here's Egypt down here. And if you're going towards Assyria is up here. So it's between these 2 parts here. So this land here, which they call so-called Saudi Arabia, this is Havilah. This area here, this region here, this is Havilah, and it was broken up. You know, some you had Ishmael that lived there. You had certain Hamitic groups that lived in the area. You know, and then eventually later on in the line, down the history, you had Esau that was down here in this area, so on and so forth. So this is the body of water that we talk about, and you can't really see it that well. Let me see. Hold on. Right. So this is a little better here. So it says, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah. And you see the body of water that's doing that is what here? The Red Sea. Because it goes down throughout the whole land of so-called Arabia. All right. That's the body of water that compasseth the whole land of Havilah. That's why it's important to identify what Havilah or who Havilah is, because here, when you read up above that, and these are the years of the life of Ishmael, so this would be in that region. Okay, now let's go back. The name of the first is Pison, which is the Red Sea. That is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. This is dealing with so-called Saudi Arabia. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium or delium and the onyx stone. All right. And the name of the second river is Gihon. Right. Gihon, the same as it, that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And when we look at the map again, let's bring this back, because this is the land this is Egypt, and as you go further down, you have what? Ethiopia down further down in the region below this. And what's the river that's compassing that? The Nile River. So the Gihon is the Nile River. And when you read in Josephus, which I usually bring that out, but I didn't think about it till now, in the book of Josephus, Josephus tells you that the Greeks changed the name of the Gihon or Gihon River to the Nile River. All right. So we identified two of the rivers, the Pison, the Red Sea, the Gihon, which is the Nile River. Right. And like I said, if you do the research and you find, the Greeks changed the name of the Gihon River or Gihon River to the name of the Nile River, because these names that you see there today, these are names of the Greeks that the Greeks put on it. The Greeks. All right, going back. It says, and the name of the third is Hiddekel. Now, Hiddekel is, well, before I tell you what it is, let's go to Daniel chapter 10. And here we go with Satan. All right, Satan, be gone. Come on now. Let's see if we could. All right, Satan. Slow your roll, dog. All right, Daniel chapter 10, verse 4. And in the 4th and 20th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel. This is Daniel speaking. Now Hiddekel, we come down to the river Hiddekel. Chadaqual, rapid, one of the rivers of Eden, which coursed east toward Assyria, better known as the Tigris. All right, so this is the Tigris River. So it says, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it, which goeth towards the east of Assyria. Now, it identifies, it says, and the fourth river is Euphrates. So this is the fourth body of water, the Euphrates. So the Hiddekel is the river on the east of Assyria. All right. When we look at the map, we have the Nile River, we have the Red Sea, we have the Euphrates River, and then furthest east is what? The Tigris River. So these are the four bodies of water that were broken into four from the Jordan River, which makes up the Garden of Eden. All right. So this is the region of the Garden of Eden. All right. So going back, it says, and the Lord power took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord power commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou shalt eat thereof thou shalt surely die. And we know what happened with that. So how do you eat? You're not actually biting a fruit, because you're not going to find the word fruit in here. It's talking about partaking mentally in the philosophies, of these other nations. Because remember, all of this, these different religions, these different schools of thoughts, these different philosophies and different things of that nature all go back to these ancient cities that were practicing with in these different arts, these different pagan worships. So that's what the Lord meant. And what was one of the biggest sins that we committed against the Lord? The worshiping of idols, among many other things. It says, and the Lord power said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Lord power formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. So Adam gave names to everything that we see. You know, it says, and Adam gave names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found any an helpmeet for him. And the Lord power caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. You know, he wasn't in a slumber like the Lord, because they try to link this up with Abraham. When Abraham had that sleep, you know, that deep slumber, you know, that's not what this is talking about. It says, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs. So it didn't mean that the Lord put him under was that Novocaine or whatever that they give you, the sleeping gas, and then he committed, or he performed a surgery on Adam to take out one of his ribs and close up the flesh instead thereof. That's not how the woman was made. Remember earlier when we read or went through the book of Genesis, the first chapter, there were many people created at the beginning. All right. So you're talking about later on, you know, descendants that came out of that mass amount of people that came out of the sea. Now let's go from there to Genesis 29. There's many scriptures you could go to. I believe it was, all right, yep, right here. Genesis 29:13. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. So pretty much the bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh is what? Is a family member. You know, somebody related to you. All right. Kin. So when the Lord said he took one of Adam's ribs, meaning somebody of his family line, and closed up the flesh instead thereof, because prior to this happening, when the line was small, you know, the Lord caused it to be closely knit. When you go to the book of Leviticus, it speaks about, you know, that you're not supposed to deal with your sister. You're not supposed to deal with your mother. You're not supposed to deal with your aunt. There's certain, you know, you're not supposed to deal with your son's wife. You know? Now, as far as the sister thing is concerned, you know, because they were closely related. That's why you have a lot of instances where, you know, brother and sister relationships turn up what? Incest babies, you know, which come out, you know, retarded looking. Inbreds. You know, because you're not supposed to have that union. But back then the Lord had that little slack, because as a people we were still small. You see, now it doesn't go into detail as exactly what took place and how it took place and why it was that this was happening or going on as we read on down, but it only makes sense that it's speaking about that. It says, and the rib which the Lord power had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto Adam. He didn't actually take a rib and just make the woman, you know, it's hip talk. Like back in the 60s and 70s, I believe it was, they used to call a man would call his woman, this is my rib. Brothers still use it today, you know, that's in the truth. You know, this is my rib, you know, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Or my rib, so and so and such and such. So it's just hip talk. You know? It says, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. All right. So pretty much the Most High was causing a union between Adam and Eve. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh, or they shall be one flesh, meaning they're going to have sex. So immediately after he says that they had sex, it says, and they were both naked. Now we know that the word naked represents sin. Because when we read, what is that, Deuteronomy, I'm not sorry, not Deuteronomy, Exodus 32. And and 25, and when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies. And how did that happen? By him making a golden calf from all of the jewelry that they had. So that represents sin. So immediately after the Lord said that they shall be one flesh, which indicates sin, the union between husband and wife, then he says, and they were both naked. So just based off of the writing, it must mean that they were very closely related and they committed a sin. It says the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Why? Because they didn't know that was a sin. Because remember, this is before the laws were actually written on paper. So it could be something else, but for the most part, we believe that's what it is, because it would make sense. Because why would the Lord say right after he said that they would be one flesh, that they were both naked? Which naked means sin. It doesn't mean they were running around butt naked and all of a sudden they found a leaf, and tied it around them, around their stuff, so that they can, cover themselves up. And these are misconceptions that are still taught in the Roman Catholic Church and the Christian Church, or whatever denomination out there that still believes in those fairy tales that they tell. So pretty much that's been, the Genesis, the 2nd chapter. Hopefully it was edifying. You brothers out there, sincere ones, and you few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.